All right, everybody, we're live. Today, we are indeed live. After, if you are looking at this on YouTube, I want you to zoom in on Craig's nose. Is it a little crooked? It is a little crooked still, bud. Maybe it was always crooked like mine.
Yeah.
But Craig had a gym accident. He texted me on this weekend, and I was like, "Hey, bud, happy weekend." He's like, "I broke my nose."
And you're thinking,
I just saw the video where he was doing those medicine slam balls. Did you not know it was coming back up, by the way?
well, no, I did a medicine slam ball, but with a bouncing ball. So it's the same exact behavior, just different thing. So it's like, drinking, water through a straw or drinking gas through a straw. Same activity, different result.
Well, so yeah, it was, when I saw the picture, you text me, I was like, oh, bull. Because usually Craig, just in case everybody knows, Craig will tell me about a splinter he gets or a blister he got. And I always tell him to rub something on it. And anyway, so this one, I was like, oh, really? You broke your nose? And he's like, yeah, look at the picture. And I was like, damn, you actually did break it. So anyway, bud, glad you're all right. I got to
put back in a position. And listen, I wasn't going to win any beauty contest before, and there's not going to be any after. So I'm fine. But it was self-induced and so dumb. Like, you just think about it over and over. Like, why did I do that? But
look, hindsight, right? I think we do that all the time. I'm excited about the real estate pod that launched. We've gotten a ton of action from that. And I know this is probably coming out after and by now, if you're not on that real estate list, but that pod with Randy was awesome. He's just such a knowledge base. It's incredible. But today, we're going to do a quick pod, just me and you, talking about something that I've been telling my kids about. And this is kind of like so my mom used to always when I was growing up, she would like, what are the tapes in your head saying? Right. Because that's the programs that you kind of listen to. And I think it's so prevalent now with social media as an adult, as children, even that, there's a set of, they are almost like a virus. I'm going to show you a video here, Greg, and I want you to kind of start kind of opining on it, as you say. But it's so important in social media where we see maybe a more successful dentist, right? Or we see something and we have a limiting set of self-beliefs, or kids see something and they're being left out of a situation. And you can easily go down rabbit holes of like telling yourself that like, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe that's not for me, or whatever it is. So let me share this, this screen with you. This video, by the way, we're taking it from a shot from Twitter. But it was viewed 67 million times, Craig. So, that's a lot. And, anyway, so here we go. Let me do this and share screen, and then I'll hit play. All right. You see it now?
I love that guy, by the way.
You do?
I love this guy.
Who is that guy? I have no idea.
He just walks around and says, hey, can I ask you? He like notices who they are by what they're driving, and like, hey, can I ask you a quick question?
Okay,
have you ever been broke before? And people like, beat it, kid. He's like, I started a YouTube channel with like, 10 million followers. I'd be like, yeah, I've been broke once. What's one thing you tell your younger self, or what's 5?
Oh, that's that guy. Okay.
Yeah. He's awesome.
All right. So anyway, here, I'll play the video without further ado.
How old are you now?
34. Just turned 34.
What's the best piece of advice that you would tell your younger self? You're having a conversation with your 20-year-old self. What's the number one thing that you would tell your younger self?
So you have to understand that who you are today is a set of programs. Like, your brain is a computer system, and who you are is just what your parents taught you, what your institutions taught you. If you were in religious structures or sports or anything, that's who you are. It's a program in your brain. So if you don't like your situation, you feel like you're limited, you feel like everybody else is like crushing it and you're not, it's just because your program has a virus and you have to rewire your mind. So meditation, mental rehearsal. I worked with Sports Illustrated for the last couple of years, and nobody talks about this, but like Steph Curry meditates before a game. He visualizes. Michael Jordan said it was just as important to spend time in the mind gym as it was the mental gym. Kobe believed every shot he took, it was going to go into the net. So everything's a mind game. Like, that's all it is. And once you program yourself to win, you can only win. It's the only option.
So,
love that.
Yeah, that's a cool.
I'd love that though.
I knew you would love it. That's why I want you to kind of talk about it, because I feel like, as I jokingly refer to you as the dental whisperer or something, and I feel like that this is something that's pretty pervasive in dentistry, right? Like, a set of limiting beliefs potentially, right? The tapes that they played in their head.
Every time you say that, by the way, Pete, my brain goes to Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder.
What, tapes in your head?
Yeah, he's like, the movie theater in my head. I guess you can't even make fun. You can't even say Simple Jack and Tropic Thunder is going to be erased from society because that movie's so inappropriate.
You won't be able to watch that.
But I keep hearing like the videotape in my head.
No.
But no, it's true. It's listen, I don't think of it as a virus per se. I think it's just your software. And we all have software updates to our phones, to our computers, everything. Nothing runs in the original software except for human beings. So human beings have a software that's usually pre-programmed, I don't know, by 6, 7 years old. It's pretty set, you know, strangers bad, grandma mean, dog's good. You know, all these things are preset. And unlike your phone or any other piece of electronic devices that you own, your software that you form as a very small child is the software that you get all the way through your adulthood. And if you think about it, there's a lot of things that are no longer serving you and actually getting in your way. So that's kind of, if I distill down like one of the talents of the thing that you call the dental whisperer, I can just hear outdated software because you use outdated language. And the language that shows up is concrete around limiting beliefs. It's like, well, you know, I practice in blank, blank, Tennessee, so it's impossible. Or you know how it is. People don't want to work that hard. You start hearing these beliefs that are concrete and not based in reality. So the first thing is, let's be honest. Let's get down to first principles thinking and be honest. Is that really true that, you know, it's impossible to meet a spouse because you live in Nashville, or you know how Florida people are, Atlanta people are? I mean, these global limiting beliefs are like a tell for people that are fixed in the past. And I do believe that you have to, in order to get to another level, you have to refine your software. And being your friend for so long, you know, 8 years, I've watched you in iterations of your own software. And sometimes the old software, like for you and me, pops up again, and I hear it, or we hear it. And we've actually had those conversations, people, you know, just friendly conversations like, bro, is that really true? You know, like, remember when I came to your house and you were throwing the ball with Brax, and all of a sudden I just got like some old software pop up and I said something like, dude, your life is so awesome. Like, I don't know, I don't have this. You're like, well, what are you talking about? You know, like you quickly called me out on it. Do you remember that? I was there for a business meeting.
Yeah, you were sitting in my backyard watching like this big turf field, you know, the turf field I had done. You're like, dude, this is incredible. I don't have this like going on in my life. Yeah.
And then you had to remind me, well, actually, Craig, you do. It's just, it's hot as hell in Florida right now, but it'll be cold in November and you'll be doing this in November and I'll be inside. So it's like, you know, STFU, you have it. But without a friend group, without a support network, how are you going to get these things? So, I mean, in many ways, what we're doing right now is hopefully inspiring you as a friend network. We're the people that you need to hear from, that like, this is a normal human set of circumstances. There's going to be bad days. You tend to take it globally. You make it a rule that this is how it is. But in actuality, if you have good friends, or you can just listen to these words and know that it's just another version of your software. And when you go through a software update as human beings, the old version of you has to kind of die in order for the new version to be birthed. I know that gets really no,
I think it's very applicable. I mean, it's something we talk about. I mean, look, that's the first part of the Bulletproof pathway, is kind of relating to the me, the person, or the vision of things. And I think this is very appropriate because, like you say, people have their own set of limiting self-beliefs. And there was another video we listened to, and the guy said, your thoughts control your feeling, and your feelings then control your actions. And I think it's really important to just be able to identify that. And sometimes you can see a trend. I know there's been times in my life where, you know, I felt pretty worthless to society or my practice or to my family, right? And you can almost exacerbate that problem by reiterating it over and over in your head, right? You almost can spiral out of control. And so I think related to that, to this Twitter video is, right, that the mind gym is really important. I used to actually, I don't know if you ever did this, Craig, but I know I've talked to you about the fact that I used to audit some of my consultations by recording them and being like, how did I do there? You know, and that was super cringy. But, you know, honestly too, for even big procedures I used to have. So I did, you know, a lot of FMR in the past, and I would get anxiety the night before just because, you know, that's just
before
me.
prep day.
I think I have a little bit of just innate anxiety, especially regard to something like that. That's a big day, right? And I would actually sit there in bed like that morning or that night before and go through, you know, not that I'm a Michael Jordan or anything, but she was alluding to the fact that there's a Michael Jordan going through the process. And I would go through, I would actually like in fast forward, like being like, all right, I'm prep and I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to ask this. I'm going to say this. And it was really like the antidote for a lot of the things I do. And sometimes even like, you know, in meeting with my team, you know, so where I'm going at this is the mental rehearsal is almost as good sometimes as the actual physical rehearsal of doing it. I really agree with what she said there.
For sure.
If not more sometimes. Right.
And it's been statistically proven what she said. So when basketball players do mental free throws for 20 or 30 minutes, sitting in a room, visualizing the free throw going into the, you know, nothing but net. And then they take the, you know, another control group and they actually physically practice for the same amount of time. The mental players tend to do better than the ones who do physical. So 30 minutes of physical warm up before a game, you know, free throw competition versus 30 minutes of mental visualization will actually do better.
Well, how do we apply this to,
yeah, I want to bring it to that if you don't
dental
mind. Well, just to bring it to life, I want to just broaden the horizon just a little bit. So I think that you and I have a high degree of autonomy and innate desire to want to win. Mm-hmm. So I think what happens for people like us is we talk shit. We're like, I'm going to build 5 dental practices, or I'm going to build a big one. And we're just doing it. I don't know if it's like piss and vinegar or bravado or just like an entrepreneurial spirit or just kind of just to go big, just to say something silly like that, but you declare it.
That's actually not the reason. There's a science of kind of, and this goes more into the science of goal setting, but typically like when we tell someone, hey, let's say I was 40 pounds overweight, Craig, and I was like, hey, Craig, I'm going on a diet. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to walk this and do that. And you, in response, be like, dude, good for you. Like blah, 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 right? You are giving me free endorphins to do, right? So it's a dopamine fix that I get without having to do anything, right?
Right. But what has you say, I'm going to go out and build 5 or 7 or 10 dental
and then
practices.
You say, wow. I'm talking about that. But because I'm going with that same method is that I may say that, yes, maybe I want to do that, but I will tell someone about that in order to get the response of, dude, that's amazing. That's impressive. Right. So there's one component of that. What has me say it is that I know that comfort for me, this is just me speaking personally, comfort is a dangerous drug for me. Right. And so I have to then throw things up against the wall to someone like an advocate, like you, who's my friend, throw things up against the wall and say, how is this doable? Right. How's this feel? What's the response back? Like I have to audit it almost with it something I want or not. Does that make sense?
I think there's just one. Yeah, it does make perfect sense. I just want to dissect it a little bit further down. There's something in a person like you that wants more. There's a certain hunger that you have. And one of the big frustrations of my own career was I wanted things for other people more than they wanted it for themselves. And I wound up pissing them off. So what has you say, I'm going to go out and do this is something that I'm trying to distill out.
I'll tell you where it is. So there were periods in my life where there was a lot of pain from not having anything. Right. And I'm not saying I grew up great. Right. But there were periods in my life, like dental school and post dental school, where I put myself in situations where I was struggling financially and sleeping on floors and whatever. And so sometimes when you have pain of like borderline bankruptcy, so I have that, plus I have some stuff that I've alluded to in the pod, you know, talking about like 2015, where I almost went out of business. And so Craig, my journey to do more is that I have the scar that I want to get as far away from that scar that
you're running away from that place.
So I'm running. It's never enough because I can't get enough distance from those periods in time.
Yeah. No,
I just don't want to go back there at all costs. And I think with one more building and one more practice and one more this, it gets me farther up the ladder from the depths of hell kind of thing. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes perfect sense to me. It's like you're either, you know, moving towards something, or it's either moving towards or moving away. You're moving away from, you know, pain and destitution.
Yeah, I'm being pushed away from that, but I'm also being pulled by some goals that I want for my life, right? I think when you reach a critical age and you start to think like, all right, like you start taking inventory of your life, right? From a balance perspective, like how are my relationships and how are the things that I want and where am I going to retire and what I want net worth to look like? And there's some goals that you start setting. So those are obviously pulling you, but there's some fear that's probably pushing you as well. So there's your answer to from my perspective.
Yeah. So then the next level, okay, so you declare this thing, I'm going to go out and I'm going to build a big dental practice, or I'm an associate, I'm going to go out on my own, I'm going to build my own practice. So the act of declaration, you make a decision, you cut off the other possibilities of the other things you're going to choose, and you choose this one thing. Then you trigger like that reticular activating system. It's like when you talk about, I was thinking about getting a Model 3 Tesla for my daughter because she's going to get her license, and I want to think about a very inexpensive or a relatively.
Is that just from me renting it and picking you up in it?
No, but it was pre-shaped from before that. Like, look, I want to spend 30 G's. I'm not something that can drive itself and avoid, an accident for a new driver is probably a wise choice. Nevertheless, there's obviously social media algorithms and things are listening to us, and they'll provide data to our electronic devices. But what's interesting is when you declare something that you want something, all of a sudden it starts showing up everywhere. It's like if you look around a room for everything red and you spend 30 seconds looking around that room for everything you can see red, and then close your eyes and recall all of it, and someone says, what were the yellow things? You won't see it. So whatever you're looking for, you'll find. It's available for you. So the fact that you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to open up my own dental practice, you're going to start listening, paying attention. So it's not like hocus pocus bullshit. You actually start, this is what I believe manifestation really is, paying attention to the signs that point you in that direction.
I mean, so is that the same as your psychology going to work for you?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, manifesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you say, how it is in Atlanta, everything sucks and you can't meet a spouse, you will constantly be looking for what you're constantly be finding what you're looking for. So you got to get your brain right. And that's what I think at the crux of it, you called the dental whisperer. I mean, I don't want to dismantle it into something that's not a compliment, but that's all it is. I'm just sensitive to language.
Yeah, it's funny, you and I talk about the circles and your friends and the messages you hear and getting a supportive environment. And I'm gonna tell you something back to this what we're talking about now. I was in Telluride, this is maybe 3 years ago, and I'm sitting there listening to a buddy of mine who had come and visit from Atlanta. And so we're sitting there talking, and I was telling him kind of these high hopes and aspirations of things. And I was like, but that's just me like painting a big goal. And it was a pretty bombastic goal, Craig. And he stopped me. He's like, dude, stop. You can do it. And I was like, I don't think so. That's a little bit worldly. He's like, hey, somebody's going to do it. Why can't it be you? And and I had a couple cocktails, and I say that stopped me dead in my tracks when he said that to me. I was like, oh my God. And I haven't been able to unhear that since 3 years ago. Right. Yeah. And so, Craig, I don't know.
Randy had the same experience, by the way.
Really?
So Randy was out to dinner with a guy, Bobby, that I know. Bobby's a billionaire, and Randy wanted to be on his boat at the time. And Randy was like, well, listen, I have like 75 employees. I just can't leave for 1 week every month. To which Bobby said, I'm making up the numbers, but Bobby's like, I leave, 3 weeks every month, and I have 7,000 employees or 8,000 employees. Or even my friend John, like when I go to, dinner with him or lunch with him, and I tell him about like some sort of employment issues, like, hey, listen, I know the feeling. I've got 9 of those going on right now. I'm like, well, then I don't know I'm like, it basically made me say, shut up, you're playing small. But listen, if you talk about your problem and you make it bigger, it'll paralyze you. So the big boys don't have it easier. They've just gotten very comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you talk to a person who has 10,000, 20,000 employees, they've got the same percentage of shit going on. Like we have 1% of our things, 1% of our life makes a problem. Their lives are 100 times bigger than ours. But it is important to have that circle. And that's why I'm thankful to have the podcast, because there's somebody out there listening to this right now that's like, oh shit, I needed this.
Do you think there's,
we have the friends and the resources. Many people don't.
Do you know there's that book, The Regrets of the Dying, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so you love that one.
I do love it. because I think when you can use that data, I'm a big fan of data, right? And so that's a data source that you can say, hey, that's pretty applicable, and I'll probably feel the same way. So like, why not, take action to kind of counteract that? But like, do you think that there's a disproportionate amount of dentists who probably regret being safe and playing small.
Oh, yeah, for sure. More for us than most. Because
what do you
I
mean
think,
more for us than most?
Well, I think
more for a dentist as a subset.
Yeah, it's a subset. We're risk averse. I think that there's a conversation. I know I had it, as influenced by my father, who's post-depression generation, very, very cautious, never invest in anything. I think your dad's very similar as well, by the way. Like, we brought our real estate deal last one to our dads and like, no thanks. I'm like, can't even like get, our dads don't even see this stuff. So I think that programming of security.
Yeah, because they grew up in the, invest in the S&P, invest in the stock market.
Or just don't invest. I mean, dad actually chose not to invest in many things. He had a commercial building for 20 years that he didn't want the hassle of renting the other 85% of it. So he had a 10,000 square foot building and he only occupied 2,000. The other 8,000 was going to shit. So I think dentists as a subset, I think if we're like kind of dissecting what got us into dentistry, you and me, our dads are both really risk averse. And we probably had a conversation early in our college days of like, well, dentistry is definitely a sure thing. It's recession proof. It wasn't like we're going to become billionaires in dentistry. We were thinking risk averse. We were thinking it's
very
stable,
straight down the track, right? It's straight down guaranteed
the track. Dentists never go to business.
Living.
Yeah. And that is not really you and me. That's more of our, getting back to the software thing that the girl was talking about. That was a small bug in our software that was probably imparted by our fathers, because our fathers are both similar.
Yeah, I would disagree. I would push back. Maybe you can speak on yours. I would push back that mine was not that way. But yeah.
And I'm not saying in a bad way. I mean, They're both great men. I don't want to throw any shade. It's just I am very different. And I'm a very different type of investor than my father. My father's a wonderful guy. It's just he's a very hyper risk averse, hyper safe.
Well, when I was going to that, the question of dentists maybe having regret, I'm saying like more so in the context of the practice that they could have built, or the building they could have been, or the team they could have had. If there's more regret there, as opposed to like, sometimes we're just so head down on our treadmill that like you just don't stop and take inventory of what you want it to look like. And so that's a big thing in the mastermind. We talk about
the number one. Number one of the top 5 regrets of the dying, the book by Bronnie Ware.
Yeah, it's a female author.
Yeah. The number 1 is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And when you take that quote and we see a masterminder who said, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't love being a dentist. I want to be a dental business person. I want to get out of the chair. And it gets them emotional. I'm like, well, why are you getting emotional, doc? Because I'm going to disappoint my family. My father would be upset that I only practiced for 25 years instead of 50 like he did, or whatever. So that speaks to the top regret, not the life others expected of me. And if we're being open, we're saying that a lot of the things we do are governed for other people.
Yes, I can relate to that one for sure. There was when I declared that I was kind of stop clinical for a while.
Right.
In the beginning, it was supposed to be just a temporary hiatus because I had too many buildings going on at once, and I was like, I just can't do it all. But I had a lot of like, wait, what do you mean you're going to stop doing dentistry? You're a dentist. I had a lot of those comments, and I was like, I got this. I promise you. Like, my wife would say it, and
Well, the industry says it too. The industry hates on dentists that do that. You're not working
and we do see that. You're right. We do see that. We're going all over the place with this pod, but we do see that in a lot of our private, retreats and such. Is there's a lot of shame with saying, I just don't want to do this as much, or I want to stop one day. And it's like, well, but I can't tell people that because there's shame with that. Yeah. And so going back to your regret of the dying, that becomes a regret when you're 80 and you don't give a shit anymore about what people think.
And that's the ultimate failure, by the way.
What is the ultimate failure?
Just getting everything you thought you wanted and still being unhappy. So like an unexamined life, like chasing someone else's dream, hijacking someone else's dream.
I would have said the ultimate failure is identifying your regret and not having the time to fix it.
Well, that's what it is. Getting everything you thought you wanted. So you pursue your life in a direction of somebody else's dreams or vision for you. And then you get there at 88 and you're like, damn, that wasn't exactly the ticket I wanted to express myself as. So it's important.
So without, this is as woo-woo as I like to go. but without, give me some takeaways, Greg, for you.
So the takeaway
like
would be like going back to the girl, right? This is just and I got a lot to say on this. What she failed to point out, but it's very obvious, I think, to me, is you can't just bullshit with a goal. It has to be real. You have to have a compelling why. And if you have a really compelling reason as to why you want to achieve it, everything will align towards that goal. If you want it for the wrong reason, it'll tend to fall apart. So or you'll get there and it won't be as rewarding. So I hear that quote as a visioneering opportunity. Again, I hear vision in everything, but like, just know what you want. And when you really know why you want it and what you want, you're likely to achieve it. And then you're also likely to be super fulfilled by it.
Mm. So would you say that, like, what percentage of I'm going to keep it dental since it's a dental pod. So you've come across hundreds of dentists, 160 plus in our masterminds through the years, and you take meetings with dentists all the time. What percentage of the people you talk to, let's say you've talked to 300 people about this?
Oh, geez.
Probably more.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying,
what percentage would you say that you've had, like, wow, you have really massive clarity on what you want, what you're building, all the things? What percentage?
So I'd say 95% don't.
Mm-hmm.
So there is, the most convenient narrative to try on, and it feels the best, and you get to flex and signal and all that stuff, and it really strokes your ego, is I want to be a dental entrepreneur and blah, 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 and take all these practices and
roll them
all up and do all this stuff. And those that do exist, I hear those people, and we do their culture index. I'm like, that actually fits. You could actually do it. But the overwhelming percentage, the overwhelming majority, that's not a person. That's just a person talking shit. And it's okay. But what they really want is, they just want financial freedom, or they just want to be able to a place where they're further away from poverty or whatever it is. But the people who are really out to transform the world, like the Suleiman Ahmeds of the world,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy, but he's got a chip on his shoulder too. If you read that book cover to cover, he was just like, screw you, I'll show you. So he's out to prove something as well.
It's funny, you mentioned the chip on the shoulder. Actually, I have a running list on Trello of like pod topics, and I wanted that to be a whole topic in itself, is the chip on your shoulder, and kind of talk to Dwight and Trey about their chip, because a lot of times and I always tell people, like, if you don't have a chip, go get one.
Yeah, it's one way to do it, but that's what I was referring to, like piss and vinegar. It's like that
was me, dude. I had my boss in 2002 look at me and was like, "You will never be able to compete against me if you leave," right? And I shit you not. I remember.
No, you want to hear something worse, Pete? I had my mom tell me that once. My mom actually said, "Hey, Craig, you're an amazing dentist. You just are not a good business person." Really? I mean, my mom. That's like it's. She loves me, she cares about me, but that's an interesting way to motivate me. Well, you talk about
going back to this full circle to this Twitter thing. Like, that could have been, a virus that you could have attached to your psychology that said, "Oh, maybe you're right." And then it's just not for me. Business is not just for me.
And I want to just point out a small distinction that I think might be valuable for the listener. That's not a terrible statement. That's a protective statement from my mom's psychology. I don't blame her. So your spouse can be trying to protect you. And by protecting you, he or she is constantly saying, like, I don't know, you shouldn't buy the building. You shouldn't do this investment. You should just stay a renter. It sounds risky. So it's like, at the end of the day, even though they love you and they want the best for you, they want the best for you from their purview and their experience and their own software. So if we circle all the way back to the top 5 regrets of the dying, it's not living the life that others expected of me. And that means the people that love you as well. So just be aware that there's biases all over the place. And your job to live a best life is to detect the viruses and the bugs in the system.
Yeah. And it's so, I think there's a quote, and, I love it that you have always pushed, like, get clarity, write it down, get clarity. And I think that, I didn't so much before I met you, I didn't do so much, like, I envision myself here and writing it out in kind of a manuscript to myself. I would more do it more in the setting of goals, right? More bullet points of things. And there's a quote that I think Oprah actually said this, and I could be paraphrasing, but she's like, and this is back when The Secret was going. Remember The Secret, Craig? And it was like this big phenomenon, the book, The Secret. And it was like, everyone thought it was like the genie in the bottle, Aladdin like thing. You could just buy the book, read it, and rub your goals.
I remember the cover
true.
with the gold seal and the fire.
Yes. Very mythical. Very mythical.
Sorcerer book.
Almost like Ouija board kind of shit.
What was that shit?
And it would basically just manifesting it and changing your psychology and going to sleep with your thing and telling the universe this is what you want, and then you would get it.
That's overrated, in my opinion.
I agree. That's a little woo-woo BS bullshit, right? But my point is that I took away something from that. It was like, write down your goals or write down your vision and shit gets real, as opposed to like thinking it in your head. When you write it down, it creates that self-accountability. And so I review these things a lot. I look at them maybe because I'm a loner and I like, maybe it's a conversation with myself. But I look at them probably weekly of goals or visions. Is that accurate? What do I want here? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my marriage to look like? What do I want my kids to look like? And it's just like, you write it down and shit it does get real. And I really I'm a firm believer in that. When you go to sleep, your psychology works on that for you. Right. You do it during the day, and then your psychology and your mind kind of works on it for you, building that muscle for when you wake. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I don't have any science behind that, but my science is just write it down. Whatever you think you want, write down, and you will know, Craig. And I think you've even said this. You write it down and you read it enough, your own bullshit meter will go off.
Oh, if you write something that's really not authentically yours, you'll have to scratch it out. That's what the cathartic process of writing something down, physically writing it down. You're like, I want this. And you're like, oh, that's bullshit. I don't really want that. I'm just saying that because my aunt told me I couldn't do it, So you kind of work out your stuff. But I agree, man. I agree. It's really cool. We're slipping into the Tony Robbins world, which is great. It's something I always forget how transformational that was. But I texted you that thing about Richard Branson as well, that I saw on Instagram with delegation, stuff like that. And I forget how impactful those 5 days that I spent with him were. It really shifted me. There's so much shifting going on that time. I was really embarrassed at the type of leader I was. A lot of people were crying around me. And I would go to work with an intention of what the day was going to look like and just totally F the whole thing up. And just being so uncomfortable at night, recalling the details of the day. And not that I was this raging monster rather, but I just wasn't proud of the person, the leader I was becoming. And I was lucky enough to be exposed to some really great people. And my buddy John always says friends are like elevator buttons. Some take you up and some take you down. And I was blessed that I had a circle.
Why don't I play? Because I do like that. And I think it's important fodder. I can even play it. Sure. I pull it up right here. Put it up.
Yeah. But seeing him in action, holy smokes.
Oh, with Branson? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, let me share this and just hit refresh here. It is good.
Best advice I ever got in my life was from Richard Branson. I met him a few years ago, and I was like, I got a chance to ask him one question. I don't want to blow it. So I asked him, I said, you haven't just built $1 billion company, but you've built $1 billion after $1 billion after $1 billion company. I said, what is the secret? He said, Robert, it's really simple. You as a CEO, you got to focus on 3 things and 3 things only. So number 1, craft the vision for how you're going to change the world. Make it crystal clear. Number 2, find the best goddamn people in the world to go execute on that vision. Sell them on that vision. Find people that get excited about what you're doing. Number 3 is give them the resources to do their jobs better than anyone else in the world and get the hell out of the way. That's it. Because you'll mess it up if you get in the way. Some of the best advice.
Oh, it's so good.
So you'll mess it up if you get in the way.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. I messed it up a lot, bud.
So number 1 was the vision. Number 2 was people. And number 3 was get out of the way.
Yeah.
Right?
So have the vision, convey the vision. So people are really excited about it. Find the best goddamn people in the world to execute that plan. And then give them all the resources and get the F out of the way.
It's funny, like number 1 and 2, remember at Summit, I feel like we had a lot of people in the room who were like good at number 1, the vision, good at having the people, and they forgot to get the fuck out of the way. Right. And they were like, remember what we kept hearing in your quote unquote interventions is like, I know I'm the bottleneck. I know I'm the bottleneck. I'm the way. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Being the bottleneck serves you. It's an identity. It's to feel needed. So at a certain point, that's what Richard Branson was so beautiful about him. He didn't take up very much space, meaning like he was a gentle, smaller type of personality. I have 1/1000th the success of Richard Branson, and I take up more space. It was a very big realization of like, I'm more of an energy vampire than he is. It's interesting. It was very interesting to me. It was a very profound experience, and I'm really grateful I got the opportunity to do it. I went in thinking like, whatever, I don't really care. This will be just fun. We'll have some drinks or whatever. And it took me years to understand what
I'm calling BS to that, because you brought your loops. You knew there'd be some action from this.
That was like a good photo opportunity. Jamie, can we insert the photo, by the way?
Jamie, Jaime, we have Jaime.
Yeah, but no, it was a super fun opportunity, but the effects of it were really profound. And I think one of the reasons why he's so innately good at what he does is he has dyslexia. So from a very early age, he realized he could not do a lot of his job.
Yeah. I do remember that now, actually.
So imagine like you're a business person, but you can't read the financial statements. You can't actually put the numbers to some meaning. So now you have to rely upon at least a team. Hey, show me what this means.
Why did you go to that? Because I don't know why I'm
2016 is when I went.
Okay, why? Just vacation?
So yeah,
was it like part of like a business group?
No, it was actually
because you have to get like invited there.
Yeah, it was an EO type thing, I think, and I got invited.
Were you an EO?
No, I was not. I was friends with people that were in EO, so I got invited, and then the girl said like, "Hey, you seem cool. We have a couple extra spots." And then my buddy John, who I always talk about, John's like, "Hey, I'll fly you down there. Don't book a plane." So I went with John and his wife, and I took Norm. A couple other people went, and everybody told me like, "Don't expect to be with Richard Branson very much." So I'm like, "Okay, whatever. It'll just be fun." And then sure enough, it was just like an immersion with him, total immersion. We had like conversations, 20 people. We were in the jacuzzi talking, just understanding who he was and how his people emotionally reacted to him when he showed up. At that time, 2016, my leadership style was when I showed up, people got scared. Whether or not I didn't mean for them to get scared, but even I would say like, "Hey, Sammy," like, "Oh my God, you scared me." I'm like, "What happened?" She's like, "I just didn't expect you to talk, come to me." So whatever it was, I was scaring people. And I could see that when he showed up, because he's a big kiteboarder, and I was taking kiteboarding lessons with him. And when he showed up, it was like very casual. He was one of the people. And if you don't get out of people's way, if you're bigger than the mission, you will derail your mission. And at that point in my career, I was bigger than the mission. I wanted it, and I didn't allow people to express it for themselves. So now my leadership style now is like, "Hey, this would be really cool. I want you to join. If you don't, that's fine too."
Was that an inflection point for you in let's call that so that was 2016. Did things categorically change from, I think there's periods in life where you can look back and be like, "Oh yeah, that was a defining, transformative moment for me."
Yeah, that was a transformative moment for me. Yeah, so 16 was that, but I had relics of my old leadership style. So as I changed, I remember I had that huge employment lawsuit.
Yeah.
When was that? Like 17, 18,
yes,
right when we started the pod. But that was like the last move for me. And if I'm being really honest, I think I probably caused that one, Pete. I lost my cool on that person. Really? That person.
This is the first time hearing this.
I would not handle that situation now. Like I got pissy. Now I would handle that situation like, totally get it. If you're not happy here, your goal is to be happy as a team member here. And I support your decision and whatever you want, but these are the rules and you have to, abide by the rules. I made it so personal back then. I got pissy. I said some things I probably shouldn't have. I mean, nothing that should have caused the reaction that I got, but I want to own that. I think I've talked about that personally with friends over the last couple of years.
Yeah. And that was a tough era,
Yeah.
I remember,
smokes, I would call you and be like, "Damn, You're like,
I had to talk you off the ledge all the time with that one.
No, I know. Remember? You're like, man, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. But I caused it, man. You cause it. The leadership style can cause it.
Well, that's cool. You're taking, that extreme accountability is good. So yeah, I think landing the plane. I think I want to wrap this one because there's only so much you can go. Huh?
Make my wife happy because she's like, Craig, you're all over the freaking place. Peter's like on it. 1, 2, 3.
Well, it's just the way I'm wired. Like going back to the program, that is the way. I think that's my defense mechanism. Is like I just revert to the 1 to 3. I'll show you how to fix it. I'll show you how to do it. I've got an agenda. You're able to be more cerebral in your conversation about I'm kind of going deeper. So, I think going full circle, I loved your lesson to people, and I think you've had, God, to my knowledge, more experience in this domain from a dental aspect, right? The dental whispers kind of stuff. I think you've had more at bats, and I think people seek you out for this very reason to test their clarity, right? Like I want to pick your brain, Craig, on on this. And it's really, Craig, I really need your help with, I'm a little lost kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just a beautiful thing about having, if you don't have proximity to someone in your life, I think it's just another thing. Like the guy, my friend in Telluride, I'm just blessed for that encounter and someone who really wanted me to thrive. And I think that's a beautiful part of Mastermind. I always say, like, get an environment where you can reprogram some shit. If you feel like you are putting your own limiting self-beliefs, and sometimes it's family, like you said, sometimes it's your spouse or your parents or your kids or whatever. But like, when you get clarity around that, sometimes people will be shed. I'm not saying your family, but sometimes your friends might be shed. Sometimes your team members might be shed. We all know, I was listening to a podcast, Greg, on, I tried to get her on the pod, but she big league.
Oh yeah. Cody Sanchez.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Love her.
And she was talking about, hey, raise your hand in here if you've ever had that toxic, she was doing a lecture, that toxic person, and they stayed with you for a while and then you did it. Who in here? And everyone's like, oh yeah, me. There's all these entrepreneurs. And it's like, anyone here wish they had that person back? They made a mistake by chance in hindsight? And it was like crickets. She was like, see, like, have a bias towards actions on things as that are not for you. So yeah, she big leagued. I actually had her all set up and then it kept forwarding. We're going to reschedule. And finally I was like, you know what? We're good.
Yeah. I want to make one more piece of advice. If even just for our mastermind, because everybody thinks they need the one-off coaching. And I get a lot of those calls. I had 2 calls like, hey, don't really want to join the mastermind. Just want to get some more like one-on-one help. And not that I'm averse to that, because I'm happy to help and if I can, but the real help would be through that network, because you're a product of what you see. And when you see other people, even people that are, you got to have people that are ahead of you in certain areas and also people that are behind you, because it's like learning and coaching is a very adaptive teaching program for anybody. So have friends that need your help and have friends that you take their help from. And that really helps people on their journey to fulfillment.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's actually, it's funny. There's 34,000 people in YPO. I just looked it up, and it's not, we're not learning, you don't get your learning through the president of YPO, right? You don't just sit around and like, oh, here's the chairman, this is what he taught me, right? You get your education from your chapter and the people in it, and then your forum, right? Which is even a smaller group where you get down and dirty and very vulnerable and you talk about things. And that's where the change happens, because people are authentically wanting what you want, right? And they're giving you advice that's not, they're not worried about you outing them or becoming a bigger dentist, so to speak, right?
Yeah, no, I like your local study club would.
It's almost like I was joking with my wife about, she's all into kids sports. Like she is like, you talk about sports, but she's psycho. And we talk about, the coaches and stuff in daddy ball. And I'm sure you have that there, Craig. I mean, daddy ball is prevalent. And it's funny. It's like, hey, I'm your kid's coach. I want your kid to do well, as long as he doesn't do better than my kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the sports thing is crazy right now.
It's crazy, dude. And like, I don't coach anymore my children. And she's like, see, you're not out there advocating for our, you know. And I'm like,
to get that incremental advantage so that Brax can make the Braves, right?
That's right.
Like all these kids are not going to be pros, you
right.
know, but it's like, it's incredible. That's a whole separate subject.
That is a whole separate subject.
One thing that I have to end on, since we're recording this on the 3rd of September and yesterday was a holiday, how much do you love the emails that we've gotten from our passive real estate? Don't you get excited? Check your email right now.
Yeah.
Look at all those individual distributions.
On the 1st of the month.
Yeah. Isn't that the best feeling ever?
It is.
It doesn't get old to me.
Yeah. The coupon, you know, that's like the expression, like, you know, clip a coupon. You hear that in the financial stuff. And I got to say,
I'm not used to that, Pete. You know,
I'm not either.
At the ripe old age of 53, it's finally starting to hit. And, you know, the law of interest and compounding interest and returns and having real estate levered, and just the 3rd of September, I can just count on all these things happening. It's really affected my ability to spend, because now every time I want to buy anything, like when I bought that car, I didn't think about whether or not I could afford the car. I took the purchase price of the car and I took our rate of return on the real estate. And I said, this car is costing me $35,000 per year in passive income.
In perpetuity.
That's what kicked me in
perpetuity.
Nuts. Yeah. And well, no, it rises. That's just, it will be more.
I do that with Bitcoin, I think.
But now you won't spend anymore.
Well, it's actually not. It's funny that though you talk about the check, right, and the coupon. So we hear that term, and you hear it with real estate. Like I hear people all the time today, I want passive income. Like, you know, all the real estate that I have, and it's not really passive. Except these environments here where you are not the management company. You are just an investor,
and you're not on the loan, Pete.
And you're not on the loan, so you're getting these.
You're not on the loan. Like, you know, I have many properties where I'm the guy holding the bag,
right?
You
but
know?
You're still getting the same deductions and the tax incentives, so it is super cool. So back to your point, yes, it's a nice. Oh yeah, because so many deals I've done in the past, Greg, and some have worked out great. And some have worked out with a big fat goose egg, but they were the investor deals where it was super binary. Either it's a 5X, 10X scenario, right? Moonshot, or it's 0.
Yeah.
There was no coupon ground. I was not getting distributions monthly like these.
Do you want to hear? I have not yet taken a distribution from my Stewart property that I bought in December of 2022. Mm-hmm. Not one yet, Pete.
Oh, meaning it's not available?
Well, no, I don't. There's
no excess cash?
Listen, I still would do it, but you know, it's a side hustle for me. It's an hour away from my house. I'm the guy that's trying to answer the calls about, like, do you want to spend X dollars to vanilla shell the space so the hair salon that went out can now become a bike
You're a developer.
Store?
You're a real estate developer.
I'm not. And you know what?
Right, but you're acting as one.
Right. But I thought my buddy Michael gave up a good suggestion. He's like, listen, our friend Johnny is a real estate guy. He's actively managing a bunch of centers. He's like, why don't you sell him a fraction, dilute yourself so that you have a 1/3 investor between me and my partner, and he can run it. And he can, because listen, I would rather own less percentage of this if it was doing better. And that's the point. I mean, I'm a living example of these.
But guess
deals.
What that is? All I hear right there is that's a capitulation, meaning that you got
Big
into
time.
something that you're like, and so had you in hindsight, knowing what you know now, going full into the real estate thing, and boy, this pod's going to be hard to title, but now you know, like, had you taken that, what you needed from a down payment of a shopping center and deployed that towards the deals that we kind of, you know, these multifamily deals and some of these other things that, you know, we got going on.
Yep.
Obviously, in hindsight, you would have coupon after coupon after coupon, and the stress. You always talk about your emotion, right? Time, money, and emotion. And this Stewart Shopping Center has definitely taken a lot of your emotions.
And it's a great deal. I'm really happy I did it. But holy
it's not passive, is my point.
No, it's far
everyone
from
talks
passive.
about this. That I want some passive real estate. I'm like,
no,
where is that?
It doesn't exist.
Well, it exists in the context of what we just said, the coupon clipping. But but yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Sorry to go all over the place.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna make you name this one. So
yeah.
All right, everybody. That's the pod. We will see you. Oh, obviously, The summit is now open. You can register for rooms. There was a time when we were mentioning you couldn't register. You can register now. The rooms are available. The blocks are going quick. Bulletproofsummit.com.
Hey, shout out to Bo Marburger from Seacoast Bank, my local banker, registered and going to the event.
Why?
My banker listens to our podcast and he still lends me money. That's cool, right?
I actually had a comment this morning from someone that was not. I think we have a lot of non-dental listeners, by the way, a fair share.
Okay.
And he was like, man, I really appreciate what you were doing. He was from kind of a private, not a private equity, but an investment house, a bank, not the same bank like yours, like a local. This was more like a PE bank. And he's like, man, I really appreciate what you've done for dentistry. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I actually have gotten many, many laughs from your podcast listening.
Wow. We got to clean this up, Pete.
What?
We got to clean this sucker up. Make sure it's, polished.
What do you mean? Make it less dirty? Then people won't.
I don't know.
Make it more straight down the middle. Make it more boring.
I feel bad about my banker. I got to be careful. I don't think he likes profanity. So I'm just saying.
We do have a
well, look, you get a 5.8
adult rating on podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Maybe that's why.
We do have an adult rating.
I had my language. I could probably get the rate you get. I'm getting dinged on my rate. Just kidding, Bo. Love you, bud. Thanks.
See y'all. And that's the pod. We'll see y'all next time.
See you soon.